kind of share is there was every reason and layer upon layer of reason that this is ridiculous, that this is impossible, that there's no way, and that she needs to see a psychiatrist. There was every part of that, but because of my training in the process and my approach, I put all of that aside and I opened up the possibility. I said, okay, what do I need to do? I need to connect with the dead, the deceased mother. So I understood the woman, and I said, I need to open it. As soon as that happened, as soon as I opened that space, I get this contact from a dead spirit who, my understanding is related to this woman. Welcome back to the podcast, Sacred Shaman. And I'm your enviable host out in the woods, Paris Tosin. Thanks for joining me today. Again, I am at the mercy of nature. And being in nature, it looks like it's starting to rain. So let's see if we can have our discussion before getting completely and utterly soaked. For many of you who've watched me over the years, let me just fix that. For many of you who've watched me over the years, I've had many discussions, even during the winter. And during the winter, it was so cold, minus 20 degrees Celsius. This is Canada, so we use Celsius. At minus 20 degrees, the battery would freeze. So I usually it was usually 18 to 20 minutes, maybe 20, maybe sometimes 22 minutes if I had a newer phone, where the battery would freeze and whatever I was saying would be cut short. So if you ever had one of those podcasts and you see me getting cut short in the middle of winter, it was probably the battery froze. A little rain. I grew up in rain. I grew up in Vancouver, and we used to rain there 8 months of the year. And all of our clothes were basically either waterproof or water resistant. Basically plastic. A lot of plastic, since plastic is waterproof. I was watching the news usually in the mornings I watch the news, and there's all kinds of discussions, politics, business, world events. Oh, look, there's sunshine. The sunshine is coming, so that might quell the rain. See, the sun is shining. See that? Sun. That might shorten the lifespan of the rain. I'm watching the news, and billions of people watch the news because that's what you have to watch. And there's no topic of course, spirituality, which wouldn't likely be there because it's a very personal thing. But there's no subject of these alternative topics. Let's call them concerns of the world, right? the issues with, pollution, contaminants in tap water, addiction. There's no, subjects, even the UFO subject, it can be discussed intelligently. UFO, there are departments investigating UAPs and UFOs. There's nothing in the news that covers the alternative subjects. Again, without getting into spirituality. But the alternative subjects are ways to maximize your life, understanding mysteries of the world, ruins, discovering ruins, archaeological finds. There's no news unless it's huge. Unless they discovered when they discovered the tomb of Tutankhamun. Other than that happens every 100 years or 50 years. So once a generation. And the good news is you don't find it on television, or you might find it in a certain program. I'm saying the news. I'm not talking about a program. There are programs on television. But is it not newsworthy that we've discovered, something about ultra-processed foods or certain chemical additives or the beauty of certain types of organic foods or the benefits of legumes or beans or superfoods? And that's the thing about superfoods is interesting. Superfoods is interesting because this is the new thing. Plant medicine. There's there's a news topic right there. Plant medicine. Plant medicine is big. Everyone's going plant medicine, but it's been around. Plant medicine has been around for tens of thousands of years, and if you're just discovering it now, you've been in a cave somewhere. You've been hiding out in a cave. It's been around for thousands. When I was a kid, it was around. Okay, when I was a kid, which is a long time ago, it was around. And I studied as much as, it's only in the last 25 years, which I studied, quote unquote, shamanism. I mean, I did the early work when I was very young. I studied herbs. I studied traditional Chinese medicine. I studied acupuncture. I studied martial arts, meditation. I was doing all that stuff when I was a kid, and my friends would refer to me as a monk because of my dedication. And although I don't include those years as part of my training, it was part of the training. It was part of the path. I think, the problem is, even the idea of shamanism today, in being let's say a Caucasian who practices or has walked that path, it's not something that, even today, it's very difficult to accept that as a recognizable, viable endeavor, practice, art form, a source of knowledge, right? It's very, very difficult. So when I was younger, it was unheard of. The shaman was some old guy living in the woods, dark-skinned, didn't speak English or spoke broken English, and gave you sage-like advice, And most of that comes from the movies, that's depicted in the movies. A lot of the times, shamans they're unapproachable because they're so different. Because they interact with other dimensions. They interact with spirits, so they're seen as crazy people. Yeah, they are seen as the crazy guy in the forest. So we don't get we don't get a lot of this in the news, but we are getting it. The with the introduction of social media in the last 20 years, all of these subjects and topics have now been made available through social media videos, and then our phones can capture videos. You don't need a whole studio. And with the introduction of the podcast, which is the formal studio, you have more and more people who've done the research being interviewed, being brought in. Although there are a lot of people brought in who don't know much, or who are just famous or artistically talented or a celebrity. But there's a lot of opportunity now to teach, to bring in knowledge, sacred, what I call is sacred knowledge. And the name of the podcast is Sacred Shaman, because the knowledge, what I talk about, is sacred. And sacred means, it's not available. It's not easily available. You can't get it on the news. You can't get it on television. Sacred knowledge comes from either your own work or, more importantly, through other sources of knowledge. Other sources of knowledge. The sacred knowledge was usually inscribed in books, on scrolls, written in old languages, and then a person would have to decode, translate, and understand this, and spend 30 years to obtain that secret, that sacred knowledge, and then they would share that knowledge. In the case of a shaman can interact with other sources of information, other spirits, or the dead, right? We can interact with a dead spirit, or a living spirit, or another type of person, another type of being, whether it's a star being or some other type of being. And they have knowledge which is inaccessible to most people. No, normal people cannot pick that up, or would not even believe it, or not even understand it. They would not understand that knowledge. And in your life, and if you're an avid follower of the show, in your life, I am sure that you've encountered situations, junctures in your life, difficult moments, crises, moments of awakening, where some knowledge has seeped into you. Whether you were in a terrible marriage and you had a realization through some process or meditation that it's time to move on, or your career, you've done enough of this type of work in your career and now you want to do this type of work, where there's a major shift in your life. Well, again, whether it's relationship or career or personal choice, or you've just been overwhelmed and you just, checked out and left society. And whether you are in the forest searching for the answers. In those pivotal moments, you will interact with these spirits, these guides, these spirits, right? It will have maybe you're aware of it, and maybe you're not aware of it. Sometimes you're not aware of it. Sometimes, and a lot of times, in my work, in my research, because I've not only, walked the path, but I've done I've also had to do a lot of personal work. I've not only done the personal work and walked the path, and I've done a lot of research. I've spoken to many people. I have worked with a lot of people over the years, informally. And whether I approach somebody or they approach me, and it's for whatever reason, we work together, and there's some kind of understanding or learning or sharing. In the early stages of my work, I was so enchanted with the idea of knowledge, that I had this knowledge, I had this understanding, I had these awakenings, I had these realizations, I had things that I think would benefit people. I would approach certain people and I would engage them and see, if I could be of service. And my approach was always, if they were not interested, I would back off, but at least I would introduce myself and I would offer. In some cases, it went really well. In some cases, it did not go so well because people thought I might have been doing something. I was a bad person, or trying to do something, trying to manipulate something. So it didn't always go well. Yeah, and some people reacted. But overall, I think there's enough positivity that it was good, and it was a learning experience. And then other times people would approach me. I was approached in very odd situations that because I'm in a state of awareness, I was on the path, that I was open to it. And, I remember one time, I don't know if I've shared this, but one time it was in Vancouver, and I was on these, I would meditate. In the beginning, I would meditate a lot. I don't talk about meditation, but when I started, I would meditate. I think in the beginning, it was probably 10 or 12 hours a day. It's a different form. It's a different form of meditation, but it was very intense, 10 or 12 hours a day. Every day. And it was very exhausting. And that's all part of the process. It's a very inclusive, comprehensive. It's like a work. And one time I was doing some meditation I would go to some remote location so nobody's around. And in the city, I went to these abandoned railroad tracks. It was in the middle of the city. There was this section of tracks which had been shut down. So there's nobody there. And around the track, and it was a nice part, it was a decent part of town. And around the tracks, there was, it's busy, there's shopping, there's apartment buildings, but nobody goes on the tracks unless you're walking your dog or something. So I was on the tracks, and I just started to meditate, and I saw this woman, this, I guess, middle age or somewhere in her 50s, a woman who looked just before she's going to hit 60, middle-aged. And I open my eyes, and she's approaching. She's on the railroad tracks, heading right for me. And I look around, and I say, well, I'm a strange man standing on the railroad tracks, which many people would think there's something wrong with you, or you're dangerous, or you're definitely a stranger. I'm on the railroad tracks, and I'm just standing there. And she's approaching me. I'm saying, okay. And she keeps coming. She's getting closer and closer. And then I realize, okay, something's going on. And she doesn't look dangerous or violent, but she's moving at a fast clip right towards me. And so I said, well, there's something going on. And then she reaches me, and I've never met her before. I don't know her. I don't always go to these railroad tracks. It's not like a regular thing. And she reaches me, she's in a state of anxiety or sadness, or, she's in an emotional state. Again, if you're a normal person, if you're anybody rational, you would be concerned and you'd call the authorities, or you'd run away or something. But I always like to explore these things. And she says, they said to talk to you. And I would say, they, she looked up. She's like, they told me you can help me. And I'm like, okay, what did they say? And then she went on to explain that she had lost her mother, and that her mother, she didn't know if her mother loved her, something to this extent, and she wanted to know, and she wanted me. Again, this is not verbalized, but the way I understood it, because normal people in an emotional state dealing with some kind of trauma or issue cannot verbalize exactly what needs to be done. So that's the job as a training shaman. That's my job, is to figure out, okay, what needs to be done. And you read the situation, you read the person, you try to understand, hopefully you get it right. And so my reading of the situation was, okay, we need to connect with the mother and get some answers. Now, again, a logical person, the logic part of my brain says that's just ridiculous. That's not possible. The woman is dead. The logical part of me, which I had trained over the years to kind of put to the side, because usually it's dominant, so I've put to the side. And I work with spirit. I work with spirit and energy and all of that good stuff. So that part of me said, okay, we need to connect with that. Now I'm not a medium. Again, I put that part of it. I'm not a medium. I put that aside. I don't have to be a medium. I'm dealing with energy and spirit. Spirits are eternal. If the woman is dead, the spirit is still there, and if the spirit is still there, I can communicate with it. Now, as soon as you understand what I want to kind of share is, there was every reason and layer upon layer of reason that this is ridiculous, that this is impossible, that there's no way, and that she needs to see a psychiatrist. There was every part of that, but because of my training in the process and my approach, I put all of that aside, and I opened up the possibility. I said, okay, what do I need to do? I need to connect with the deceased mother. So I understood the woman, and I said, I need to open it. As soon as that happened, as soon as I opened that space, I get this contact from a dead spirit, who my understanding is related to this woman. So now you're just reading energy, and the energy is that's her mother. It wouldn't be connecting to anybody else. Nobody else is interested in this woman. And there was this very strong love There was this connection of love, which it meant. You understand, as soon as I opened up all of these possibilities, that's when the connection happened. But yeah, I had to go through, I still have to go through that process. For me, it's very quick, but I can understand how most people would never get through that. Most people would never even get through the first step. And that's the access to sacred knowledge. Now we're accessing that's sacred knowledge. Sacred knowledge, you can't access it. You cannot access sacred knowledge unless you can do the things necessary. You're in that state, you're in that level of awareness. And that comes through training. All of that comes through training. The sacred knowledge is not handed to you. You have to train. If somebody hands you an ancient book, you can't read it. You have to learn how to translate. You have to learn an ancient dead language. You have to study. You have to research. And after 5 or 6 years, you can understand the sacred knowledge. But now you've paid 5 or 6 years of your life, and then you write a book on it. But you didn't just write a book on it. You spent 5 or 6 years of your life, or maybe 10 years, grasping the sacred knowledge out of the one book or one situation. So the path of sacred knowledge is very time consuming, very energy consuming. And I've spent, 25 years learning a lot of information, but nowhere near everything. There's way too much information and knowledge. And so the connection to this woman, I facilitated the communication so that the deceased mother would communicate to me, and she didn't use English. It's a different language. It's an energetic language, and you have to read it at an energetic level. So I understood, and then I would say things that the deceased mother would say something to me, and I would share it with the woman, and the woman would confirm what I said. And then the woman would say something, and it would confirm with So these are things, but I know nothing about them or their history. I don't know anything about them. So again, the logical part of me is like, you can get this completely wrong. So, but you have to trust. You have to, working at this level is a very huge investment in not only trust, but understanding. And you have to have a certain skill to do it. And these types of situations I would get into, and that's what I would learn, and I would study. You kind of, shamanism, you kind of study hands-on. There's no class. There's shamanism you could train, but there's no path, there's no program to study how to share the truth with society. There's no program. You can't go to school and say, I want to expose the truth and teach people to be better, to awaken them, to awaken society. There's no program. There's no path. There was not for me anyway. There's no. You kind of stumble along the way and you make a lot of mistakes. You say some stupid things. You get something's wrong. People call you crazy. If people are calling you crazy, you're on the path. Assuming you're getting things, you're doing your work, you're doing your research. If you're just rambling stuff and yelling crazy things, then maybe, you need to see a psychiatrist. If you're doing the research and the work and the introspection, and you know what you're talking about, then if people call you crazy, then you're on the right path. And you're probably a little crazy anyway. Normal people don't do this. Normal people don't do this. Yeah, if you hear me talking to myself, that's part of the program. part of the program, because I could be talking to some spirit or spirit guide. I might be dealing with some kind of discussion that is beyond good or bad. Maybe it's a bad discussion. So it comes with a lot of baggage. But I had the discussion, and at some point, and this is all happening real time, very fast. This is not like we didn't sit down an appointment. I'm not charging any money. We didn't do a seance. There's no candles. I'm not burning any incense. Like in the movies, they got all this preparation, and you got to do the chants, and did you do the did you take these herbal tea? There's nothing. Again, this is the power of spirit. So there's the communication back and forth, and it's so emotional that I got tears. I got waters flowing from my face. And when the interaction is over, when the woman was satisfied, this troubled woman, that her mother loved her, because she didn't think she loved her. I mean, I can still feel it today, which is many years. As soon as that was done, as soon as the woman heard and believed what she needed, she turned away and she walked off. She just turned and just walked away. And then the connection faded out. And I'm left exhausted. I was left exhausted. I didn't do my meditation. It's going to take me a few hours to recover. And I've never seen that woman again. I would not recognize. I would not know. And she might be even gone. If she was, it must have been 20 years ago. She's probably in her 80s now. And she probably doesn't even remember that. That's the thing about what this path is very powerful, and it's very moving and emotional and enlightening. But people don't remember this stuff, people don't care. There's many situations where people get angry. They get upset, or they misunderstand something, and then they come after you. And most people you never see again. It's kind of a strange path. It's a strange path, but it's not a path I chose. It's not a path I chose. It's a path. It's not a. Let me rephrase that. It's not a path in the physical reality that I chose. When I was a kid, I didn't say I wanted to be a shaman, because I didn't understand that term. And it was not a term that was widely understood. And, spirituality was mostly dominated by religion, secular beliefs. So even when I got older, I didn't grow up, in a family of shamans, and I didn't live in the forest with a monk, and I did not do ayahuasca, which a lot of people are doing now. So there's nothing. What I'm saying, there was nothing. Sometimes people, they say, yeah, my father was this and my mother did that, and so all my life I was involved, and that's why it's natural I became this. There was nothing in my life to indicate that I became this. Zero. There was zero. But when you start speaking to, when you start seeing spirits, when you meet star beings, little gray men and women, and they talk to you, and other people in the room can see them, And when you meet other people, elves, when you see a spaceship land, when those things happen, when one of those things were to happen, if one of those things were to happen, it fundamentally changes your view of reality. The problem was back then that talking about the things that happen will automatically label you as a nut, because every official scientific source will deny everything you've just said, even though, like, in physical reality, it's there. So not only do I have no path, I have there's every logical reason that this is a dumb idea. Anyway, despite all of these things, I trusted the things I was experiencing, the things I was seeing, and the knowledge I gained. And that's what I did. And that's walking the sacred path. That's walking the sacred path. It's a very difficult path. And everybody, if you are a spiritual person, you're going to have your own spiritual journey. It's not going to be like mine, but it's going to be a spiritual journey where you come to interact with your own spirit. And you may have spirit guides. And if you believe in spirit guides, then you know what I'm talking about. In some cases, you'll have an out-of-body experience. You'll be involved in an accident. You might have a near-death experience where you will visit a higher place and they will say things to you. You'll have a life review. All of these things. So your path is different. But that there's reasons for all those things happening, and those things will fundamentally change your life, right? They'll connect you back to your incarnation. What are you here for? Who are you? All of these things, and that's also that's very sacred, right? And there's more and more of that. I'm saying there's more and more of people experiencing this stuff, because people are having issues with addiction. They're unhappy. They're depressed. They want more. Or some people are older souls, and that they want to do more. They want to be in touch with that older part of who are they really? Who am I really? Who was I before? Did I reincarnate? We talk a lot about rebirth here. And so there's more and more. And now you got science is trying to come in. Science is trying to come in and talk about the scientific application, the benefits of these superfoods, and the criteria for establishing a near-death experience. There's criteria. Did you have these? Did you fit? Did you follow these rules? It's true. If you didn't, maybe it's just an illusion. The more and more evidence of UFOs, our interaction with our extraterrestrial brothers and sisters, all of that, it's always going to be more and more coming out, more and more. And the more it comes out, the more we explore, the more books, the more we overcome addiction and get back to our true selves, the more the type of things I say and other people say will make more sense, and we'll be better off for it. It's a process. It's work. It's time. And you always have the obstacle of reality and anxiety and physical anxieties, which are in the news, preventing you from fully embracing yourself. But I say, I will leave you with this. You came here for a reason. You have an obligation to make sure you fulfill those reasons, and that you have a full understanding of yourself. And you have to maintain your physical life and your obligations. You cannot deny those, like I did. Don't do what I did. But you have an obligation to yourself. If you are struggling, you need to move forward. And not everything you hear is true. Be careful of this. Not everything they say is true. So be discerning. Yeah. Okay. And just like superfoods, let me just say superfoods. I'll end it with superfood. Superfood now, there's this new thing, superfoods, and there's a lot of nutritional stuff, superfood. And superfoods should be eaten, and we should be doing this, and we should be doing that. But let me just say this, ginger was once a superfood. Potatoes, if you go back far enough, the potato was a superfood. Yams, if you go back far enough, yams were a superfood. Okay? Cayenne pepper was a superfood. And now we just take advantage of it. Right? So be aware of that kind of situation.